Anything cynical sounds deep. Machiavelli. This can be said of men, that they are ungrateful, fickle hypocrites.
Deep.
John Adams. All men would be tyrants if they could.
Deep.
Sigmund Freud. We are descended from an endlessly long chain of generations of murderers.
The world is so big. I'm scared to swim.
But I think cynicism is not just lazy and naive, it's also selfish. But why would I want to be cynical? I wouldn't want to view my own species as shitty. Then I'd have to think I'm shitty. Why? Why would you want to be cynical? Because it gets you off the hook for bad behavior. If you fuck up, you hurt someone, you steal some shit, you can just say, oh well, people are bad anyway. And bam! Guilt gone! Use cynicism and 99% of your guilt gone.
You know what? I'm about to say it. Say it.
Most people are good. 2 words. Delusional, idealist.
I'm gonna vacuum all the shit out of your soul.
We are selfish creatures. Does this even sound true?
Vaguely.
Philosophers had a model of human behavior and they were like, what if people were selfish? Economists looked at that and were like, oh, that's pretty nice. Basis of my economic theory. I assume at one point in time, one of the economists said, guys, do we need proof? To which he was responded, no.
No. And found that it predicted the behavior of chimpanzees. The model, however, could not predict human behavior because every time people were too decent, too kind. Good theory, guys. Wrong species.
What else you got for me? Huh?
I probably haven't completely persuaded you with just one study, and I'll come back to that, I promise. I just want to say that it's so weird. Anytime anyone says something cynical, like, man produces evil as a bee produces honey, no one ever checks if it's true. I'm literally quoting the Nobel Prize Committee's award speech for a book that's about kids trapped on an island who start murdering each other. When real kids got trapped on an island, they worked together. But no.
If it makes me feel bad, it must be true.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul.
You see, their morals, their code, it's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble.
When I was 16 and I heard that, I was like, oh my god, that's so deep. But when you check if it's true, you look for people's actions when they're in trouble, like World War II on the front lines. Soldiers that were wounded in battle would regularly refuse to leave the front lines because they didn't want a new recruit to take their place. Selfish bastards. Hogging all the action! It was even a common thing for soldiers to escape the infirmary, to go back into the front lines, because they didn't want to let their friends down. So I think that it's not only, beautiful that even in the worst circumstances in history, that we're there for each other, but it's also normal. We is doing a lot of work there. Thank you, sir. I don't get a lot of appreciation. Yes, awful things. But most soldiers never killed anyone. World War II Colonel Samuel Marshall interviewed hundreds of soldiers on the front lines, and he found that only 15 to 25% of them fired their guns at the enemy. Sociologist Randall Collins estimated that only 13 to 18% of soldiers fired their guns. And it takes a lot of effort to get someone to be violent. If you ask a normal person, "Hey, shoot that guy," most people's reaction is gonna be,
Can you leave?
commanding officers would complain.
They only shoot at people when I'm watching them.
And when people did shoot, World War I French Colonel Ardent Depic realized they aimed too high. In World War I, German soldiers would even send British soldiers letters that said this: "If we shall be forced to fire, we will fire too high." They even said, "We are still your comrades." Even generals would complain about it. General Bernard Montgomery: "The trouble with our British boys is that they are not killers by nature." Military expert Dave Grossman said, "The obvious conclusion is that most soldiers were not trying to kill the enemy." And what happens when they do awful things? Are they happy about it?
So uncivilized.
Video's getting kind of boring. I don't want it to be like I'm just telling you shit, you know, like I'm a fucking teacher. I just want to be, we're chatting. We're buds. But you don't fucking know me. I don't know you. We're not friends. But I want it to be like we are. Let's have a rest, alright? That's pretty sexy. Any Quentin Tarantino fans out there? Quentin, watch my videos. Is it boring? Is it a good video? It's very difficult to make. Like, I just want to ask, is the music too much? I don't know how to use it yet. No, it is not too much. I'm the top dog. I blast the music every day.
X gon' give it to you.
The part I hate the most is my voice. It sounds so preachy. I'm like, I'm not trying to be a dickhead. I'm not trying to be smug.
When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
This argument comes from the most famous cynic in history, Thomas Hobbes. And you likely believe it if you're a cop or in any position of power. So are they right? Do we just
Eat each other.
This will be tough to find out. If only, someone wrote things down when bad things happened. I guess we'll never know. Disaster Research Center from the University of Delaware found, from over 700 studies, whatever the extent of the looting, it always pales in significance to the widespread altruism that leads to the free and massive sharing of goods and services. They also found that what most people believe to happen during disasters happen so rarely they are considered myths. The three biggest myths are panic, being a dickhead, and being an idiot. But in all the movies, people go savage. If studies don't do it for you, they don't. Here's some stories. I love stories. 9/11. As the Twin Towers were going down, there were still people in the stairways saying, "No, you go first." And on the 69th floor, yeah, I know, 69. Anyway, so 9/11, there was a paraplegic accountant on the 69th floor. How did he get out of the building? People, normal people, 10 of his co-workers, carried him down nearly 70 flights of stairs. On the ground there were 300,000 people stuck between the collapsing towers and the ocean. Thousands of normal people with boats immediately rushed towards the biggest terror attack in the nation's history to evacuate the stranded people. It was an evacuation the size of Dunkirk, accomplished within hours, and it was done by random people improvising, random people who had a desperate need to help. One of the rescuers, one of the heroes, ferrying others to safety on those boats, is quoted saying, "Everyone did what they needed to do. No one had to tell anyone what to do." Everyone who was on the ground during 9/11 always describes such a sense of solidarity and such a desperate need to help the people around them. This is true in other disasters. After Hurricane Katrina, over 200,000 people volunteered their housing to people who needed it. So who are we during disasters, Mr. Hobbs?
Every boat was completely full every run. They were happy to do it. They just kept saying thank you. The largest marine evacuation in history.
For most of us, we are kind, selfless, and brave, and we want to help, and we become bonded together. So no, I don't believe the people who say the average person in a disaster randomly turns into a fucking werewolf of crime and rape. I don't believe that shit. And the people who do, like the police during Hurricane Katrina, those guys wind up murdering innocent civilians. Historian Rutger Bregman, catastrophes bring out the best in people. I know of no other sociological finding that's backed by so much evidence that's so blithely ignored.
A murder investigation are making
murder charges and crime of violence.
Guilty of first-degree murder, smiled and laughed in the prisoner's box.
Now, get ready for my smuggest point. The most smug point I can make. Why does no one trust the news, yet we all use it to form our view of human nature?
Think, Mark!
Not only do psychologists call the news a mental health hazard, there's over a dozen studies that say the news has a negative relationship with reality.
I turned it upside down when I said negative. God, I'm smart. What? Here's the evidence, so you know I'm not ripping it out of my ass. Look, it even says it. Negative relationship with reality.
Studies show that the less plane crashes there are, the more the news reports on plane crashes. The less immigration, the more coverage on immigration. The less violence, the more videos of road rage. That's like going to a park. Oh my god, no. Oh my god, no. Oh my god. Oh my god.
There's shit in the park. The park isn't shit, is what I'm trying to... That's the whole message. That's the whole message. The park isn't shit. Stop saying the park is shit. I think it's a good park. I wish I was more witty in these videos. There's no wit. There's none of it. Where's the wit? Where is it?
Whenever a scientist does a study saying that we're nice, it gets completely ignored. The instant a scientist does a study that's usually fraudulent, saying that human beings are evil, it gets so famous, it shows up in my favorite TV show.
In the Stanford prison experiment.
Why does this happen? We literally have a negativity bias. We pay attention to negative shit like, I think it's like 5 times more than we do positive shit. The news knows this and it wants views, it wants the clout, and it just keeps feeding you the worst of humanity. So no wonder the people who watch it are literally more depressed and more cynical than the people who don't. It has nothing to do with being realistic. This is holding a fucking magnifying glass over the smallest piece of shit in a park the whole time. That's not realism. That's being obsessed with shit. Before civilization, we were savages. Were we? Did you check? Or are you guessing? Historian Douglas Fry concluded that nomadic hunter-gatherers avoid violence. Look at all the paintings. Pre-civilization, thousands of cave paintings about hunting bison. Not a single depiction of war. Americans sent some movies to a tribe, and when a historian visited them years later, they swarmed her and they said, "Tell us it's not true. Tell us they don't actually kill people." Lastly, an anthropologist went to the Yamani people in Brazil to try and prove that they were violent. He kept giving them machetes. How do you say kill all your friends in your language? When he left, the Yamani people invented a new word. Its definition: a powerful non-human with disturbed tendencies. That's what savages think of cynics. So I wanted to leave you with this.
Man is good.
But that's not what I believe. Because yeah, people can be manipulated to do almost anything. So I don't know if we're good or not. But our natural tendency is kindness.
That's pretty sexy.